Political front. The fallout from this past Wednesday's CNBC debate has now spread to the network's mothership, NBC. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, saying it is now suspending its partnership with NBC, will not let NBC air the Republican debate this upcoming February 26th. A letter to the chairman of NBC News states why the RNC is pulling out. Let me quote part of this letter. It says this, quote, "The CNBC network is one of your media properties, and its handling of the debate was conducted in bad faith. We understand that NBC does not exercise full editorial control over CNBC's journalistic approach. However, the network is an arm of your organization, and we need to ensure there is not a repeat performance." Joining me now, CNN political commentator Michael Smerconish, who also hosts CNN Smerconish Saturday mornings. Also with me, senior media correspondent, host of Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter. Stelter, just hot off the phone, try not to eavesdrop too much, but what is the deal with NBC right now?
Well, checking in with the Republican National Committee, they say they haven't heard back from NBC yet. The ball's in NBC's court. You know, this is an attempt by the Republican National Committee, by Reince Priebus, to take back control. Candidates are very upset. Campaigns are very upset about how it went with CNBC. Some of the blame has been apportioned onto the Republican Party as a whole, and so what we see here from Priebus is an attempt to take back control, take some control away from NBC, get down to the table, have a conversation in the days or weeks to come, and see if they can work it out. Now, I believe NBC and the RNC will work it out.
That's where I was going to go. You think
but
that
others are not so sure. Others are not so sure. The Republican Party is saying we want to have a debate that day, and we will have a debate that day, whether NBC is there or not.
What do you think?
The politics are brilliant for the GOP because, you know, nobody wants to defend the media. The media ranks even lower than the Congress, right? And from a political perspective, not an entertainment perspective, there are already too many debates. The RNC tried to rein in and did to a certain extent. There were far more debates in the last cycle. They got out of control. They tried to rein this in. And frankly, they're probably looking at Democrats and saying they have the right idea with a total of 5 or 6. We never should have signed up with 10 to begin with.
Of course, from our perspective, we'd like to have more debates, wouldn't we?
We'd like to have 25.
Of course.
And not just for television reasons, for ratings reasons, but also because we'll get more answers to more questions or more avoiding answers to questions. You know, at least we'll have a chance to test these candidates, to probe these candidates. But that's not what they want, right? They want to get up there, they want to deliver their talking points, they want to take their shots at each other and then get off the stage.
Well, this weekend there's a big meeting of the minds.
Well, among the campaigns getting together, and initially the idea was that the RNC wouldn't be involved in that because the candidates are trying to rein in this whole process. They know they don't fare well when it's an extended timetable.
The question now is how many of those campaigns are actually going to show up on Sunday. Some are going to come to this meeting, some might not go to this meeting because the Republican National Committee is trying to take things under control and call off this NBC debate. So there's a lot of, I guess, turmoil behind the scenes because that CNBC debate did not go well. Now what we're seeing is the fallout from it.
Can I make a point? I would not have asked questions the way that the CNBC panelists asked some of those questions. But I think anybody interested in this issue should take the time to Google the transcripts of all of the debates and see if there's really a discernible difference. The Fox debate, which was the first of them, first question to Donald Trump, are you part of the war on women, after referencing how he'd referenced fat pigs, dogs, and slobs. To Scott Walker, would you really let a mother die rather than have an abortion? To John Kasich, if you had a son or daughter who was gay or lesbian, how would you explain to them your opposition to same-sex marriage?
These sound actually tougher. In some ways, they sound tougher than CNBC's debate, I think.
So it's like, we're shocked to find there's gambling at Rick's Cafe, Casablanca reference, because of the way CNBC posed those questions. Again, the cartoonish question that John Harwood posed, not something I would have ever said, but not too different from the way Fox's debate.
But these candidates are also very savvy in, how they don't always answer the questions.
Well, they have
pivot to whatever.
Now they have a built-in excuse. And you saw this on New Day yesterday morning with Carly Fiorina when Allison was asking what I thought was an entirely appropriate question about what she'd said about Planned Parenthood. And now the device is to say, I can't believe you're asking me that. That's a media bias question, which is a great deflector of legitimacy sometimes.
Does it show that the outsiders in this race, though, have quite a bit of power?
It absolutely does.
I mean, look at what's happening.
Think about Donald Trump. Because of Donald Trump, so many more millions of viewers are watching these debates than had ever watched primary debates before. As a result, the threat from a Donald Trump or a Ben Carson or a Ted Cruz not to come to a future debate, that has even more power than ever.
Right, but what are they seeing when they watch? We watch car wrecks as well, right? We rubberneck. I would maintain that the imprint for the GOP brand thus far is not one that helps when the dust settles and independents have to determine the outcome.
You're thinking about this time next year.
Absolutely.
When it's the general election season.
Thinking ahead.
Hey, 3 steps.
There we go.